Liberalism, The Dying Light of Liberty, Part 1. By James P. Pearce. No matter the rhetoric, no matter the destruction, there is never a path out for refuge from a political pursuit, it seems. We are all myopic enough to think or choose to be stuck in a generational time warp. Well, when all the supposed leaders are just sticking to scripts, then who is really to blame? The sharpness of that blade is almost a constant cut that produces nothing but guilty blood. That spills over into self-serving and self-destructive tendencies. As much as the left wants to cancel everything it deems as offensive in its wake, the conservative stance of liberalism or neoliberalism is nothing more than postmodern miming. Why even bother with memes? To sum it up into something the conservative side does have the moral high ground on, those who justify their liberalism will ultimately wind up either being hypocritical or just as confused as before. Yet this still belabors the point of self-destruction, yet those that aren't willing to show the ones who hold us in contempt, the secular satanic elite, are just as nihilistic. In a way, it is seeing the death of God within them, just as it is within a spirit of an age. It is really easy to get bogged down with antichrist rhetoric, which is just as dangerous as what the left is doing to the right side. Yet again, there is evil on both sides. Recognizing evil is what we must first recognize. There can be a million political theories, but all are ineffective if Christ is not at the center of that symphonia. I know for the modern version it would be easy to pick Papal Catholic Italy or Patriarchal Orthodox Russia as some versions of a symphonia, yet with the almighty dollar, the persuasion is there enough to dissuade people going to two extremes, finding a new religion or going atheistical. Can you really blame people who have a hard time separating politics and religion? I cannot. If the message is usually simple, then people will not grasp a lot of easy concepts, especially in this day and age. This is why memes are so effective and why so many people rely on the TV, internet, also old school, the radio to get information. There are numerous channels or mediums to get that kind of information through. I am not going to list them all here. Yet, to come to think of an Orwell quote instead of a church father one is a rarity for me, but here it is. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. George Orwell. And also this one comes into play. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. George Orwell. So when it boils down to moral consumption, this is the solidarity that liberty has to show. Most people do not know who Oswald Spengler is, but more people know who George Orwell is, so that is a bit of a good thing and a bit of a bad thing. Think about the first one, when cancel culture exists, when individualism and liberty should be celebrated as it falsely is. Well then no one should be punished for not wanting to bake a cake for someone they don't agree with, the lifestyle choices that potential customer has decided to make in their lives. If there is an agreeable option to the current political liberty that is being exercised, it actually looks like do what thou wilt, which is of the devil, not of God. That path leads to both communism and fascism, and it is no surprise that those with the lifestyle choices that are disagreeable to that baker are the ones aligning themselves with Satan. It of course comes out in all kinds of expressions of supposed liberty. The mask comes off when that supposed point of view is provoked. This is true across the board, and it can lead to good things. Because, in his second quote, this is where the exposing of those lies come into play, and it is glaring. If the baker has the personal choice to not bake cakes for people he disagrees with, then why should it bother someone who has made a choice that is of this world and decides to fly hateful banners in the face of God? Yet, once again, the lies are prophetic and the deception is exposed. Yet because the supposed neoliberal right respects those personal choices, the lies can be taken even further. This is what creates a controlled opposition narrative. I even see it amongst the patriarchate of the Orthodox Church. Is it harder to convey these messages to people who do not understand these kind of ins and outs fully? It sure is. I have pointed out the numerous issues with someone like J. Dyer and Alexander Dugan, yet when people who are zealous in the true faith, it even falls on deaf ears. Take this with anyone who buys into the liberalism narrative, which is all just a replacement for the true faith. In these respective contexts, this is where the light of God should be a cause of our inner devotion and outward expression goes, not to the statue of liberty promoting false equality and false virtues of supposed goodness. Not to bring a racial component into this at all, but when someone is as celebrated as Martin Luther King Jr. in American society, and there could have been much better leaders picked for the civil rights movement, then there is a crisis of morality at hand. To be absolutely respectful, if we are one nation under God, and we are promoting a morally consumed culture that changes its supposed moral structure from month to month with a new cause, that is a nation facing its end and nowhere near anything our great-grandfathers, grandfathers and even fathers fought for in every globalist-controlled war. The people who call America a democracy have no idea what that word even means, along with the jumping the shark on what is a supposed republic. These are all very convoluted ways to interpret God's law, and this is why the morality is not legislated. With fascism, there was an attempt at an ethno-state. With communism, there was an attempt to abolish religion. With capitalism, there is an attempt to replace this all with consumer goods. The common theme is just a continued string of replacement political theories. All have their cycles, as Spengler was pointed out earlier. People seem to be hoodwinked that the light of liberty ended the former and not the latter of the above statement. The problem is that all three have extinguished a liberty-minded ethos, which is a Christian ethos, and only expressed in the true belief and true faith of Holy Orthodoxy. I mean, there are definite opponents to it in the West, yet those opponents are easily snuffed out due to Christ our God conquering this world and trampling death by death. If Christ said he overcame this world, which he did, then why are not nations following suit? It is a bit topical, but it is also relevant, that both Catholic and Orthodox nations have continually been tested, strived for and even overcame the world. So it would be unfair to place it all on the lack of God in one church. Yet at the same time, there is definitely controversy always surrounding that, just as it is with the nations justifying morality. If a do what thou wilt mentality, or just as the supposed Enlightenment brought us any kind of reason, it would be a true death of God in society. Now there is not to say that the light of God is extinguished, because it never will be, because it is a part of who we are. Yet it amazes me that with those three replacement and supposed liberated or ordered dictates to politics, society is always lacking. Now, to know we are always going to be led by flawed sinners, in both the church and the state, is a fair thing to admit, but an even fairer thing to admit, is to know we are flawed sinners. Yet, there can be as much internet conspiracy theory musings as there are flavors of pizza toppings, crust, cheese and sauce, but what it really boils down to is how much those theories lack God. This is why liberalism is a dying light. This is why it has failed in all its practical applications, whether it be neoliberal capitalism or proto-liberal communism and fascism. Socialism was already examined, as it is merely a hybrid of the three aforementioned theories or structures of government. There is plenty here to dissect, so when we leave it with the light of God and not the failed light of fallen man, then really is that liberty all much more important to hold on to in spite of ourselves, or is it worse to do it to spite God?